Time to troll you with some more information. If you got that joke, you are my people. And so this is episode 3 of my How Do Muscles Grow series. And I want to start by saying that progressive overload is not linear. It is not a straight line. And what do I mean by that? Well, I'll explain it later. But if you've heard that phrase not linear before, it's because I also talked about it in relation to the other X channel when I talked about fasted training and energy substrates. Because the body is complicated. Metabolism is dynamic and variable and multifactorial. It is not a straightforward process that you can just hack. Context is everything. When you look at something through a short-term, acute lens, when you look at one small part of the pie, it can be deceiving. Because when we take a step back and we look at the whole pie, and we look at all the processes involved in something, such as fat loss or muscle building, and we understand the complexities involved, then we can highlight what is significant or not. And just a quick detour, because I know many of you are watching this, you are following me through all my videos now. It's hard to believe anyone out of shape talking about fitness. Debuked already. Street champion, you did not debuke me. You can assess physical fitness standards just by looking at someone wearing a hoodie sitting in a chair. You should sell that wisdom. You will make bank, my friend. Chris is the "you hate on him to get views and new subs, you jealous old man" does not debunk the accurate scientific outlook I presented. It is called a peer review for a reason. In science, peer reviews assess others' work, which ultimately leads to a better understanding for all of us. Or you can just type in caps with a childish response. Your call. Bro, who are you? I've never seen your channel. That is why you don't know about fasted training or energy substrates. So it doesn't matter how many childish verbal abuse you send me, or indeed racist abuse that I'm receiving. I want to be very clear to you and express to you what it means, the fact that you are having to follow me now in every video.
I've got news for you. You are mine now. You belong to me.
And so there are very few concepts within fitness that I would say are compulsory. But overload is certainly one of them. And if you watched my last video within this series about anabolism and catabolism, you will understand how these processes don't really look so much linear like this, but they kind of look a bit more like this. It would not be a straight line of anabolism and catabolism. It would more be this sort of curved line with peaks and troughs, where at certain points throughout the day you are anabolic and certain points throughout the day you are catabolic. But the goal is to create net anabolism, where you are more anabolic throughout a day than you are catabolic. And why is this? Well, because catabolism follows anabolism. And so most certainly, when you approach fitness concepts, I want you to take this balanced analytical middle ground. Stop looking for the hacks and the extremes, and look at things in context and use a common sense approach to understanding the information that is directed at you. Because after all, we simply must hold ourselves in YouTube fitness more accountable for the information that we are providing. And so first of all, I need to define overload. And here's a textbook definition. Beneficial adaptations occur in response to demands applied to the body at levels beyond a certain threshold. Overload, but within the limits of tolerance and safety. And so essentially, overload means creating a challenge to the muscle, creating a challenging stimulus which will force it to adapt. Now, here's the first mistake. People think that overload just means adding more weight. And yes, adding weight is a form of progressive overload. But it's not the only way you can overload. And why is this important? Well, because most certainly, again, you need to put yourself on a spectrum. Are you more of a beginner, an intermediate, an advanced lifter? Are you natural or are you enhanced? All the variables, your age, etc., your prior history of injuries, your training goals. The more beginner level you are, the more that actually using weight will be your main focus. Of course, you need to learn the proper technique first, but it's much easier for you to just add weight to your lift to create overload over time. Whereas someone who's more intermediate or advanced, they can't just add weight indefinitely because they are closer to their genetic potential of muscle size and also strength, and there is a point of diminishing returns. And so the more advanced lifter has to be more creative. So what other forms of overload do we have? You can decrease your rest times to create more fatigue on the muscle when you start your next set. You can change the tempo of lifts. You can slow down the eccentric contraction. You can use acceleration through a lift. That will also increase overload. You can increase the range of motion of a lift. Of course, you can increase your volume, repetitions, and sets. You can increase the frequency of your training, hit muscles more frequently throughout a week. There really is a good list of different overload methods you can use. And so as a beginner, You can really go more with the basics, your major lifts, with of course some accessory movements such as external rotation as a form of prehab to avoid muscle imbalances. Whereas the more advanced, intermediate to advanced you are, the more creative you need to be. Now, you don't just have to use one method, you can mix and match, because training is an art form, planning is an art form, and it's actually enjoyable when you understand the concepts involved. But why can't you just keep adding weight indefinitely forever? Because progressive overload is not linear. And to explain that, I'm going to refer to Brett Contreras, who has a nice article on his website about this. And he says, no gains from weight training, be it mobility, hypertrophy, strength, power, endurance, or fat loss, will ever occur in a linear nature. Fat loss will not occur in a linear nature. Where have you heard that before? The body doesn't work that way. Adaptations happen in waves. Sometimes you'll make big jumps in a single week in a particular quality, while other times you'll stall for 3 months in another quality. But over the long haul, everything goes up. But it's a windy road. There are physiological reasons for this phenomenon, which is beyond the scope of this article. Brett Contreras explaining how important it is to understand that the concepts are not linear. And he explains it as a wave. And if you look at my anabolism, the net anabolic state to build muscle, you will see how I drew these waves in terms of anabolism and catabolism. And I explain this as the Game of Thrones of biology, a constant battle for your body to be anabolic and catabolic, and both processes are needed within metabolism. And so instantly, if you take this chronic view that your progression won't be linear, you're not always going to hit your targets. It happens in waves. Some sessions you're not gonna lift well. Some weeks you're not gonna lift well. Others you're gonna exceed your expectations. So what's the application to you? Don't panic if you hit a plateau. Trust the process. However, let's pretend for a minute that you could make linear progress for an entire year on a particular lift. A 10-pound jump per week equates to 520 pounds in a year. Even a 5-pound jump per week equates to 260 pounds in a year. Moreover, a 1-rep jump per week equates to 52 reps in a year, while a 1-rep jump per month equates to 12 reps in a year. You won't gain 260 to 520 pounds in a year on any single lift. And you won't gain 12 to 52 reps on most lifts either. It just ain't happening. Some sessions you'll be surprisingly strong and make big gains. Some sessions you'll simply tie your previous efforts. And some sessions you'll actually be weaker and go backwards. But every 6 months, you'll likely be stronger and fitter. Of course, you have to plan your sessions and focus on quality, but taking that long-term approach to achieving your goals is beneficial. And I hope you can see how progressive overload is not linear. And so you might be saying, well, what happens if I'm hitting these plateaus, hitting these waves? Well, this is what Brett Contreras says. He says that progressive overload has a mind of its own, and quite often you'll do everything right, but you won't get stronger. The plan just won't work, and it won't make sense to you. It doesn't make, and he said, it just doesn't make sense. Why is this happening? And I love this line here. And again, this relates to the other X channel video that I made. Physiology is tricky and multifactorial. Again, the complexities of the human body. Physiology, what's happening to your body when you're exercising, is a complex process. But I want to state here that overcomplicating things is detrimental, as is oversimplifying concepts. And that is extremely problematic. And that was really the theme of my video about the other X channel. And I hope you understand that concept. And so I don't give exact training programming to you, because I really do believe that it's an individual process, and it really heavily depends on your personal characteristics, such as being a beginner to advanced lifter, naturally enhanced, previous injury, goals, specificity, all the things I've talked about. However, these videos are intended to get you thinking about certain aspects. And so I want you to take away 2 things from this video. Progressive overload is not linear. Don't panic if you hit a plateau. And also, don't just program to increase weight indefinitely. And secondly, think about how many different ways you can overload a muscle, challenge a muscle. And I'm sure some of them are going through your mind right now. And look at your exercises and think, how can I make this harder without necessarily increasing weight, because I'm already fairly strong at this movement? And I'm sure you can think of ways instantly of doing that. So I'm James Linker, Shredded Sports Science. I'll see you soon. And so let's go microscopic and look at muscle growth at the muscle fiber level. And essentially, muscle fibers can increase in size. And so what factors contribute to you being anabolic in relation to muscle mass? Well, these are of course your training, and this would be the type, the frequency and the intensity of your training, nutrition, amino acid uptake, which is absolutely essential, and this again will be the quality of the amino acids, this will be the timing and the quantity. And then we have other factors such as hormones, we have recovery, we have energy balance. There is a whole multitude of variables which influence an anabolic and a catabolic state.